Ricardo, the Mexican economy slowed a little bit in the third quarter, but overall it is booming. How come?
Well, Mexico's been lucky because it hasn't been hit by all these crises of Europe or the U.S. We didn't have a mortgage boom, so we didn't have a crisis, and we didn't have a government debt explosion, so we didn't have that crisis either. And Mexico's doing really well, actually. It could do better.
We could all do better. And it's doing much better than the United States. Now, people think of the two economies as closely connected, but Mexico's doing much better than the United States economy.
Yes, in a way it is. But the thing is, you got to understand, Mexico is a big country. We have 112 million people there, and most of them are quite young. So the demographics are highly favorable for growth because all these young people, they have to carve out a life for themselves. And they're not going to sit around on their hands waiting for somebody to fix it. So there's lots of things going on, and it's hard to get people. It's hard to hire people.
That's quite something.
Yeah.
The war for talent extends everywhere.
Yeah, not only that, but we find that we have to pay substantially more money to hire talent in Mexico than you would, for example, in the U.S. Isn't that incredible?
It is incredible. Mm-hmm. What's the explanation?
Well, I understand our president makes more money than your president.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, now that raises, I had no idea. But it raises an interesting point because, of course, you have a new president
yes.
in Mexico, Enrique Peña, and people who study the economy in Mexico have said, well, look, it really needs reform in three policy areas, labor, taxes, and energy. Now, with a new president, what's the outlook for action on those items?
Well, there's been a lot of talk around those three reforms. And it seems to me it's a highly political position because we saw, for example, the labor reform pass through our Congress in the past couple of weeks. And, everybody's saying how good it's going to be and so forth. But I have 80,000 employees, and I didn't feel particularly in need of a reform. I mean, I'm sure there's some good things in there, but it's not going to be like the holy grail that we finally got it here. It's good, but it's not that good. So that's for labor. Now, in terms of energy, for example, Mexico has had a government monopoly in all the energy sector, both electricity and oil and gas and everything. But the monopoly is so large, it even includes gas stations. So you can have any gas you want as long as it's called Pemex.
Right.
And of course that's ridiculous. I mean, why would we be constrained in the choice of offering equality to a single corporation, a single brand? You can understand that that oil business is very important for Mexico. And let me explain why. More than 30% of the federal budget comes from the royalties that the oil company pays. So if they were to sell or privatize that, they would have a huge budget problem immediately. Okay, so that's why the extraction of oil and gas, I don't think is going to be touched at all. Many other things will be, for example, refining, transportation, distribution, retail distribution. That kind of thing is obviously a candidate for reform.
Right.
And the other one, which was the tax. In Mexico, we have a sales tax. It's called value-added tax, IVA, and it's 16%. It's quite high, but it does not apply to food and medicines. So it has a hole in there, and the politicians are very concerned about how the population might take a tax on food and medicine.
Right.
It's a political hot potato.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the part that they're working on, the politicians, to see if they can close that gap.